So the disconnect to me, I'm going to let you come right back, brother. The disconnect to me is that even though we're saying the right things, that's why I agreed when you said the so-called right things, because we say what we imagine we have to say, but that extra step where it's not just discipline, but it's discipline mixed with that sensitivity and understanding. It's not just, why, what the hell is this on your phone? It's, okay, because this is how I had to go through it. This is what's on your phone. Okay. If I'm honest, you know what my first thing was? I laughed. When I saw the stuff on the phone, I laughed. And the reason I laughed is I'm not that far from talking that talk and doing them things myself. So when I saw it, I knew what it was. So I laughed.
Parents have to expect
and then I went through, okay, so you're telling this man about how, oh, yeah, God, blah, 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 and whatever, because someone said something you didn't like. Now, is that what you're actually, oh, there we go, there goes the set. Is that what you're actually going to do? Because you're saying this, but you're talking to this man. If this man comes back and deals with you based on what you said, how he should have to defend himself. Are you ready for this? Is that what you're planning? Then we had another conversation about robbing, stealing. He said, oh, I'm saying, about you are talking about going and taking somebody's things that are not your own. You know, you couldn't bring that back here without us have to, like, we have to have that conversation. Then when I was listening to a song he had on there. What's it? Man don't something, man rob. What was that thing?
Oh, I think I know.
There's a song called Man Don't Talk, Man Rob or something like that.
Yeah.
And my son's got that on his headphones as he's making his way to school. But now I know that's what you're listening to. Now I've got to deal with the music, but I'm dealing with with what's coming up or what's causing it more than I'm worrying about what actually came up.
That's the difference, Justin.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. It's not that parents are doing that other thing, but if we're not connecting it with real workable things, it's why my brother said, like, let me just put myself in the right perspective. I did the other thing before, you know, but the response and the result didn't work. So I had to reevaluate and not do that again because it didn't work. There was a point where, you know, like you could say, oh, you know, you're not swearing in the household or whatever. And that's good. That's intelligent. But what would happen is you go and listen to the music your children's listening to. Their normal, everyday conversation is expletives. You were telling me about 10-year-olds writing their report of their behaviour.
Yeah, literally, like over, I'll tell the story very quickly. I'm working with a year 5 class, so they're 10-year-olds, and they had an argument on the playground about Kyle Walker's stats on FIFA. Anyway, big cursing break out over it to the point that's on at 10 years old. So they're on the playground, they're coming up the stairs, and I'm hearing F words, I'm hearing this, your mum's that. And the thing was as well, is they were so comfortable that when it came time to write the report, you know how children do. Usually, you admit everything that you did wrong, you blame the other person. No, I said this, I said this, all the swear words on the paper. And at 10 years old, but it's a society.
But understanding, and it's your turn now, Minkah, but understanding that, there is the stuff that we have been told we should do, but the results and what's happening to us must be telling us to reevaluate, no?
Again, I still want to stick by my point that I disagree with this point about the disconnect. And you see, I think, you know, we're looking at the...
Why do you disagree?
Well, I disagree because it's our frame of reference. And our frame of reference still seems to be that the parents are not really understanding what's going on with our young people.
Do you know what I think is difficult for you, though, Brother Minkah, that is really tough, is that I know Brother Minkah's children. You don't have a disconnect. So if you're judging it from what you see in terms of your relationship with your children, but no, there isn't. But if you look at it in terms of us as a whole wider community, do you not see it?
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead. You're free to disagree. Where this is a place that black people can say what they want to say.
I was just having a discussion the other day with all my children, and I was talking about one in particular. And, you know, she done all the things that my brother David, well, no, not as far as brother David.
Yeah, just that fact.
When, you know, and the fact is that, you know, we are going to be doing things as parents, but no parent, no matter how well you try and do all the best thing, and this is what I mean about the disconnect. You are not effectively going to address the issue because it's a wider society issue in which that no other nation have tried to resolve this problem by their own. If you look at the Jewish community, they don't look at it just in the context of parenting. They set up institutions in which that for their own teenagers, and where my children have been protected is because I've had a family network, not so-called parenting.
And that's the same thing. That's the same thing they're saying, though.
Hold on. But what I'm saying is on a wider level in terms of communities, if you look at the Jewish community, if you look at the Asian community,
of course,
they all set up these institutions. And what I'm saying when I talk about the disconnect, it's not the communities.
Right, and where our community fall down with exactly what you're saying is that they refuse to put their hand in their pocket and fund it.
Well,
and that's the fact. They won't fund it.
And hold on. And now, when we're talking disconnect, we're saying the disconnect is actually seeing the problem and addressing it to actually what makes a difference. Because some of the stuff, when I look back, some of the stuff I was being told, it's not that it wasn't intelligent stuff. It just couldn't work with me at the time and in the way it was being given. So I'm not saying that all parents are really bad people. We're not saying that. But because I think we're kind of on the same point brothers on. I don't feel we're that different because we all agree we have to come together. But we're saying where parenting is being done in isolation, where parenting is being done in terms of listening to what the so-called good parent says and does, that's just not working, and it hasn't been working for so long, and we aren't really readdressing that issue. Of course you can,
in terms of that, with good parenting, because the good parenting thing, send them to school, make sure they're fed, make sure they're dressed tidy and stuff. The standard of parenting that's set, I think it's different for black children and for black parents.
Why is it different?
Because the society has a different impact. So if you think about it, for example, and I was thinking about what Brother Minkah was saying, I can kind of get it a bit more in terms of how you have...
Because we are all going to have to agree with Brother Minkah before the show's over, so let's just do this.
No, but in terms of how you have well-to-do parents, they spend time, they send their children to really... They invest money in their children's education.
Yep.
They send them different places. They're interested in their homework. All the things that we're told good parents should do.
Join
and
the
yet
PTA.
Still, join the school boards, and yet still their children can end up falling into certain behaviours, and it doesn't stack up. Like, why would you want to be on road? Your parents you're coming from a upper middle class, but you want to be on road talking about stabbing and shooting people. Why? But it's the society. But I think what it is
why? Hold on, you said why? Is it the society that makes them want to do that? Because I think it's a natural thing. To want to be on road. Like, I think when I say, because here's the thing to me, whenever I hear, someone was talking to me the other day and they said, because on road, and I remember I used to say all that. That's just okay. How are you on road if you've got a family in a house? Like, that doesn't even make sense. But the reason that you're saying on road is you're trying to find a place to have purpose, to have meaning, to have some power, and you're not being given that at home.
Right, so this is the point. So it comes back to the whole holistic thing, which I think it just ties into, it just ties into parenting. So when we were talking about other communities, for example, how they look after, they create an experience, a network, and they place their children in it. So there's more. I think we can't look at it as an independent thing in terms of, okay, it's the parents' responsibility to do everything, but it is the parents' responsibility to be involved in, okay, look.
In the village.
In the village. To go, we actually need a village. I think that's the difference between us.
Part of the disconnect, as you said, that we're not even establishing and realising that the village is, what you're saying, is a lot more than just parenting. It is building up these different elements.
We used to have that village, remember?
Of course we had it.
People don't want to invest. We relied on the government to give us buildings.
Go ahead, Brother Minkah. We're trying to...
So we're talking about this disconnect. You see, to me, right, as I said, we've been involved in organising, as I said, going up to 40 years now. And I think it's absolutely wrong, right, to characterise our community as really...
Please gesticulate into the air.
All right? No, it's to characterise our community as just being dysfunctional. I think it's absolutely wrong.
Do you think that's what we're doing?
I think we're talking about a significant minority. So when we talk about this disconnect, we've got more of our children now going through the education system is than we've ever done historically.
Yeah.
We've got more of our people now in certain professional areas of work than what we've ever
But we're still failing.
But again, depends. You see, the failure in which that you're speaking about is a significant minority, and we need to be careful that
Explain what you mean when you say a significant minority.
Well, a significant minority because the majority of our children are not basically caught up in gangs. The majority of our children are not in gangs.
Okay,
the majority of our children are not in school.
I apologize. I made a mistake there. When I was speaking, I did not mean the failure in terms of being in gangs.
Right.
Because to me, being in a gang in and of itself is not a plus or a minus. Just depends on what you and your gang do.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? So just not gangs. I'm not even talking about leaving school without GCSEs. I had a phone call from a brother the other day about someone who's really distraught because their child didn't do well in mocks. I'm like, why is that a big thing? Like, your child's still here. Like, they didn't do well in mocks. I think the message I put back was, we're just so desperate for our child to have a place on the plantation. So when I'm talking success and when I'm talking about not failing, I'm actually speaking about raising a generation of children who have a responsibility to their community. And that's just, to me, that's just it. Like, if they understand there's a work that we're doing here, that they're to be a part of building that village, we've been successful. If they don't get that and they now come up having done whatever fitted into the system, and if they didn't get in trouble, that's of no use. I used to tell you lot, remember when I'm like, you do what you want to do. But I'd rather you a road sweeping activist than a lawyer that don't want to work for their people. You can't even come around here and eat with me on a Sunday. And I was telling them not that about 5 and 6 years old. So my version of success is having young people who are ready to pick up the mantle and help us repair and fix ourselves and take us to the next level.
I mean, the reality is, brother, I mean, I have to say I would be very distressed if my children done very poorly in their mock exams. And as I have mentioned to them, that, you know, that's a serious indication of what your exams are going to be, and we need to fix up and we need to do some serious work around that. I don't think it's an either or. The fact is that we live in a technological age now, which means that our children needs to have certain technological skills to function within the society in which they're at this moment. So I don't think it's a...
When you say technological skills, what are we discussing here?
Well, we're talking about engineers, okay?
Yes.
We're talking about having accountants. And we need to talk about our lawyers. We need to talk about our doctors. We also need to talk about our tradespeople.
But do you talk about them outside of having a community responsibility?
No, as I said, it's not either or. It's neither either or. We need our children, certainly, to have those particular skills.
Right.
But the fact that they don't have those particular skills is not something which is really anything to do with the system. They go to the system, which is really mainly a training ground. The issue of developing that sense of community and responsibility is actually responsible for our community.
All right, so we came home.
All right, then fine. So what I'm saying is that, but we can't knock the importance of getting these professional skills because they're very, very important.
No, hold on. Like I said, it's not the skills by themselves, because an engineer can be very useful to us. But what I'm also noticing is when we're talking, and these are conversations around tuition and training, I know you deal with this and we've spoken about this before, but when we're talking about training and skills, I'm not against us. I generally like to send my children to school at 16 and qualify. My son, he's qualified from university. So I don't have any issue with that. But it's like there has to be a purpose to the qualifications. When people are getting upset at mock level or SAT level and having emotional responses, this is not your child's future. This is just an indication. If there's something wrong at home or there's something wrong with your child's focus, that can be dealt with. There's plenty of time. But we get like really on our children, and I think that's another part of the disconnect, because I have a child who's very academic, but I also have children who are not very academic. The child who's not very academic, I believe, harm him by actually getting too into that with him on his academics. So we found another way to get him through that, and then in the end, he went off to do engineering, which is more of a practical thing at university, but in school, he was not that wasn't something he could deal with.
I hear that, brother. No,
Go ahead.
I'm still concerned about these monks. But anyway.
All right. We're family here, and we are allowed to disagree. But we like to get together.
But I do think it's important that we should be carpenters. I do think it's important that we should be plumbers. I do think we must be media technicians.
Why?
We must be all of these practical things as well. But all of this requires an intensive amount of studies and training.
But where?
So when you have a test to kind of see where your children are at within any areas of this particular studies, and it sends out warning line, we should be concerned about it. Can I also just quickly say, as Brother OG was here, all right?
All right.
You mentioned a point in the just listening to the adverts that was coming.
Go on.
That just went through.
Yes. You two stop talking amongst yourselves and join in. Okay,
Right.
Go ahead.
And I just want to just flag up this point as a parent, because within our community, and I'm relating it back to this very important advert that what we had during the break around the New Cross, and the New Cross massacre that took place in 1981. Now, 13 of our young people was murdered. And since that murder, the way in which that these children were treated after this murder was absolutely appalling.
Help, just for the listeners who don't fully understand, can you please, we'll take some time, let's go through this. So go through that situation. Yeah. So how were they treated?
Yeah. Well, just going back, basically there was a fire in January 1981 in which 13 young people lost their lives. And the way in which that the police treated these young people after the fire wasn't that they were victims. They actually treated them as suspects. And I say suspects because when you looked at the evidence immediately after the fire, it was very clear, the evidence in regards to an incendiary device being found in the garden. It was very clear in regards to the evidence that people actually saw a white person with a throwing action near the house. It was very clear that this fire that took place was a pattern of attacks that was taking place upon our community around that time. There were active, known racist organization in which that the police could have easily have round up in regards to their interrogation, but yet we're the ones that was actually treated. Many of these young people treated, as I said, in the most appalling of way, traumatized. If you could imagine seeing your friends actually perishing in this particular way. And so there is now a campaign, and I have to give credit to Omega Radio, who has been in the forefront of actually highlighting the fact that there's not been any closure on this particular issue. The last various different inquests that they had were open verdict, and these open verdicts goes no way in regards to addressing all the various problems in regards to
an open verdict meaning they don't know what happened.
According to them, they don't know. And what we're saying as a community and those that are actively involved in that time, that there is enough evidence there if it's dealt with in an open way. Because what we need to understand about the inquest process, the inquest process is not about pointing fingers about blame. Okay, it's about to establish, how did these people die? Yeah, they died in a fire. But what was the reason behind that fire? A lot of it was not, evidence was not allowed to be taken in that particular inquest. And people may say that this may be a separate issue to what we're talking about in regards to parents, and this is why, and I say absolutely not. Because we've got parents within our community now, some of them who have now unfortunately passed, that don't have those children, that don't have these children to have gone on to marry. They don't have these children to go on and have children. And this, to me, symbolizes the importance of what I'm saying. This is not just an issue of parenting. It's really an issue of the political economy in which that what we're living in. What is the agenda of the system in regards to treating us so that when we have problems within the school, we have the whole weight of the system come down on us. We have the whole weight of the system through the media. These children are not just listening to music which are violence, encouraging violence by accident.
No.
You know, and we as a community need to be addressing that. So there will be a meeting that will be taking place on the 28th of January, in which, again, we're appealing to our professionals within our community, particularly our professionals. And I know this touches on the point that our great brother Justin raised, which is true. We are getting people through the system, but that kind of consciousness amongst themselves is not where we want it to be. But nevertheless, we're not giving up on them, because we also have some very positive professionals out there in which that we want them to lend their weight to this demand that what we're raising about really reopening up this particular case. So we're talking about the lawyers, we're talking about the private investigators, we're talking about the police, and don't just sideline the police, because I can tell you this now. You've mentioned the point earlier on about Rashawn Charles, and I'll tell you this now. In Rashawn Charles' case, is a young man that was basically strangled to death in front of our eyes by the police. His uncle is actually an ex-police. His uncle is a person that actually trained police. His uncle is a person that actually knows about what their procedures are. And the vexation of this individual is a pity he wasn't vexed before the other people that was being killed.
Funny that you say that. It's only maybe in about the last 5 or 6 years I've met at least 5 or 6 policemen and ex-policemen, black policemen, and actually had a chance to sit down and talk with them and realize that's a heavy struggle for those the family that's actually members of the police force to actually try and stand for right.
So we shouldn't underestimate the impact that what we're having on our people, because these professionals, they don't come to your community all the time because they just almost feel a sense of consciousness, but they realize even within their own positions within the system, the system start to then put pressure on them. They say, you will allow you there and no further. So we're not discouraged around the fact that on certain levels we have certain low level of consciousness. We're putting that appeal out there. It's the 28th of January. Yep. It's going to be 4 p.m. It's going to be at the Caribou Centre, and people listen keenly.
Caribou Centre in Brixton, just behind the police station.
Yes, and people need to just really listen keenly, because at the end of the day, if we don't respect ourselves, and I'm not taking, and I take on board the point that our great sister Cheryl was making.
He's making friends now after he was disagreeing.
Our great sister Cheryl said, we're not as supportive as a community as what we need to be. And I don't take away from that. And it really is up to us to really to bring about that change.
I must admit,
I'm forever optimistic. So I had to make that point about parents.
Beautiful.
Okay, because we mustn't forget those parents that don't have their children around them here today as a result of that terrible massacre that took place.
And that's on the 28th of January at the Caribou Centre. Right. Are you going to give your telephone number? Because I know that's part of it if anyone wants to get
listen
in touch.
To
the advert.
Listen
you can't
to
remember
the advert right now. Right?
All right, and we will be talking about that here on Amiga FM.
But in saying that, when I give out a number at the end, that could be a central number.
Yes.
On Amiga, in which that you can certainly you will get further information there. But I don't want to take over.
Well, actually, I'm going to give you a tad more time to take over just to do this for me, because you did that so well. I loved the style there. So take this from me.
What's that?
And if you can also talk about where we are with Tamani's case, because you mentioned it a little bit with your son, how even though this is a young professional, college graduate in I've forgotten the subject, but I know it was a heavy subject.
Science.
There you go, in medical science. He's gone to Notting Hill Carnival. He's having a good time. Police decide they've got whatever issue they've got, but however it ends up, he's injured, and they charge him with assault. Am I correct?
Absolutely correct.
And what are we going to do about this?
Well, again, I think this demonstrates the genius of our community yet again. Because, there was a time in which that our people would just be attacked by the police, and it would just be one of those things. Of course, if we're out in the streets, brothers that are around knows that we don't turn the other way when we see a brother being attacked on the streets. Back in our days, we represented. And that's why nowadays when you see these beasts on the street, they don't come in 1s and 2s anymore.
Yes.
They come in their 10s.
That's for real.
Right, and that's a result of that's a result of their history and fear for us. So in regards to my son's case there, as soon as we heard, because you see, my son, you know, we hear these young people say they're rolling with their peeps and whatever they want to call themselves. You know, my son was rolling, you know, with accountants. You know, was rolling with engineers, which was rolling with plumbers. You know, really children that parents would have done all of what they would have expected their children to do. But as I mentioned earlier, the police didn't see that. They saw the color of their skin. Yeah. But what they didn't know is that there is a network in place now that hasn't been there historically. For example, now we have down in Brixton, under the leadership of our great brother, student minister Abdul Akeem Muhammad, who has established a ministry of justice. And for me, you know, there's no other way in which that what we as a community effectively going to be addressing these issues if we do not see it as an onslaught. This is just a parental issue. This isn't an issue of just a problem of jobs. This isn't just a problem of just policing. This is a problem of a state who is clear in keeping us on the plantation today. And so what happened was, as soon as we heard notice of this, that my son was actually been taken away,
gone to work.
We got to work, and the first thing we got into work was to contact our great brother, our brother Jeff Muhammad, who is not only sits in on the Ministry of Justice, leads up on the Ministry of Justice, but is also there as a solicitor who provides a service to make sure that any of our young people who have been arrested, they have immediate legal support in those police stations, because very often when our young people are in these places, they get so intimidated. They're just ready to say anything to really just get out. So that particular support was in place. And I know we don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to fast forward by saying also that these there Ibis, I don't know, my son ain't really earning a significant amount of money at this moment in time, but they nevertheless decided he was not going to get legal aid.
I think it's been rescinded, like, through many different things that they're taking that.
And I would have thought he's been charged with assault against police, 2 counts. And I'm not even going to go into the details of that, but it's absolutely farcical. We've got evidence to counteract that. And what we're saying and what we're doing is that we're basically making sure we have a legal team in place to make sure that that evidence is represented to the fullness.
Amiga Radio, 104.1 FM. News and views around your community.